Think Realty, thank you so much for joining our podcast today, whether you're viewing or you're listening. I'm so excited that you joined us, and so excited from whatever platform you joined us, but I hope that you also join us in deeper conversation by following us on social, interacting with us. Comment below these podcasts on whatever platform you're watching or viewing or consuming them on. As the founder and owner of Think Realty, I'm so excited to be hosting these podcasts. As many of you know, Abhi Golhar hosts them often, but this year I've made a dedicated effort to get to know you a little bit more, the Think Realty connoisseur, and so I'm so excited to be a part of that. And as a part of that, I always bring on fantastic guests, and today is no exception. I'll bring him on in just a second, but I want to say a quick thank you to our podcast sponsor. Our podcast sponsor is brought to you by Real Property Management. Working with the right property management company can put more money in your pocket, not less. Real Property Management provides a higher standard of property management to make sure you're maximizing the return on your investments. Experience the real difference with Real Property Management. You can visit Real Property Management at realpropertymgt.com. That's realpropertymgt.com. The guy I'm going to bring on is a close personal friend. And also, this guy has had his finger on the button. Could have literally wiped out nations. He was a submarine captain that drove around nuclear weapons. That's a pretty crazy title and experience, I would assume. But now he's dedicated to making a difference in Americans' lives all across the country. Let's welcome Gary Pinkerton to the show. Gary, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, thanks. I really appreciate it, Eddie. That was quite an introduction, and thankfully I didn't ever use that button, but yeah I guess you're right.
Was it a button? Was it like a series of buttons? Like how?
Well, in the end, there was a button, but thankfully there were a lot of people and cool heads and a lot of double and triple checking to make sure we understood the guidance before we ever went that far.
For sure. I see in the back there, I see a hat, I see a sword. What are the significance of the items back there on your shelf behind you?
So I'll start with the coolest and closest to my heart, which is my dad's American flag that my mom got when he passed. He was a private in World War II in the Army. And then next to that is my hat, or my cover, we call it in the Navy, which was the last one that I wore, which was for Navy captains. And then next to that is the ceremonial sword that we learned how to use when we were plebes or freshmen at the Naval Academy. And then anytime we wore our dress uniform, we'd have to, like in a wedding or a change of command ceremony, then we'd bring that with us.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for your service, and thank you for continuing to serve. I know that your mission is just as important today as it was when you were serving in the Navy. If you don't mind, for the Think Realty viewer or listener today, explain your heart and what your passion is and what this next phase of your life is all about.
Yeah, so I joined the military. If you go back 30 years, I joined the military because I wanted to get out of the state of Illinois, Southern Illinois, and this dairy farm that we had lost our farm, high interest rates in the 70s and 80s. I mean, I was 18 years old, so I wasn't all that mature. And all I wanted to do was kind of go somewhere else, get a good job, and get, safe, secure pay for the rest of my time and never be as poor as I was as a kid. Looking back on it, those were amazing years around my dad, my best, amazing mentor, learned a tremendous amount. But at the time, that was my focus. And somewhere along the way, in the first few years, I got really, really inspired about service to our country. And I just wanted to help others, better their life. And I wanted to protect what I had come to learn was just this land of opportunity, right? I mean, to me, that's the American dream. Anyone can come to this country. You can start from any position in this country. And if you work hard enough, you can, be the president or be a billionaire, whatever you want to do. And so I really wanted to preserve that. And for the first 25 years, I focused on doing that, by pushing off or protecting us from outside threats. But it occurred to me, and I think it occurs to many people as we walk through life and our taxes go up and we see some of the crazy rules and new things that come out, that actually America is so strong from the outside because of the oceans we have around us and all of these things, the just natural advantages that this country has had, which is why we've never really been attacked. I mean, way back in the beginning, we could, say the French and Indian War or something, but, realistically, we've never really been attacked. And it's because just geographically, we're pretty well protected. And now in this internet world and where missiles can go all the way around the globe, we're still pretty well protected from the outside. But what I started to learn is that America will get taken down from the inside. And so it's about things like freedom of speech and all of our other freedoms. It's about this tend towards socialism that happens really in every developed country. So I just want, I laid down my sword, so to speak, and went to help families from the family level, the kind of nuclear family level, and grow from there to give people agency, the ability to make their own decisions, not be under kind of the thumb of anyone else, to do things that they don't want to do, because they were able to set up their lives for their family and for their businesses in a way in which they get to call the shots, right? And so they're essentially blackmail proof is really the way I think of it. And so that's what I want to help families do. And I have a few tools that I use that for, or use to help do that. Some of it's real estate, which is why I love what you do, Eddie. Some of it is actually like an infinite banking or your own life insurance policy, to a more efficient way to kind of store your wealth.
Yeah, that's awesome. So obviously the first big mission is that of fostering agency, giving people the right and the ability to make their own choices without blackmail, as you said. If you don't mind, take us a little bit deeper into that. I mean, so you empower the American people to make their own choices, right? To not live under the auspice of what someone else thinks or someone else, tries to gain control, whether it's our government or it's a neighbor, right? I mean, like, you give them the power to choose. What does that do? Like, how does that change our nation?
If somebody has the power to do what they want to do, well, first of all, this might be a little bit Pollyannish, but I believe that if people are doing things that inspires them, then they wake up every day excited to share those tools with the world, right? Like there are things that I can count very quickly on one hand that I hate doing at any price. I guess a better way to say is that I would outsource that at any price. But there are people who actually enjoy doing that, right? And so if we can line up people with things they like to do, that's huge. And, just kind of across America, we're happier. But probably more important than that is that if we can put people in a place where they want to keep doing it, then we don't have this, how do I retire at 35 or 40 work ethic kind of thing. And we don't have a load on American society, and we don't have kind of as much entitlement stuff. So if we can make people more excited and proud about what they do, but most importantly, more confident about themselves and about their future, if I can convince people and they can see it walk out in their own lives, that the number one asset in their life and really all they need is just to be able to produce for their family. Like, this thing I can count on. And the only way that happens is that they're in something that they're competent at, that's in need, and that they have the ability to do. So they have to have the ability to move and pivot when life changes, right? You've had many more businesses than I have, and you know that sometimes you got to pivot out of that business or move the business to a new location. And you just have to have the financial capability and the confidence to be able to go do that. I mean, my family is a classic example. I found out in early 2020 that I was not a good fit for the environment that my family was in New Jersey. And so we moved to Florida, and it made a huge difference in my ability to produce. My company performance went way up because my mind was in the right place.
Yeah, that's really, really great. I know that maybe somebody listening thinks that utopia doesn't really exist. And maybe it doesn't, but I believe the pursuit of that utopia, like you, I think, brings so much freedom to individuals that buy into that mindset. I mean, I know I buy into that mindset. I don't want to be controlled. I don't want to be controlled by my government. I don't want to be controlled by the auspices of others. I want to be able to, like you said, pivot and make sure that I am providing. I can rely on me. Take it a little bit deeper. So you use tools to help people find that freedom, to foster agency, such as infinite banking. And infinite banking is a sexy term, but I think often misunderstood. And if you could just give us a brief overview of what infinite banking is, and I think it will generate interest enough that maybe they'll take another step towards finding out more.
Absolutely. So in its most simplest form, infinite banking is creating your own banking system using a tool that makes it grow more efficiently than you can pull off at your Citibank checking account or savings account, right? There's other things, like there's a lot of privacy. There's So you have, additional privacy, you have life insurance in place, but the tool, and the reason the life insurance is there, because the tool that I choose to use and many people choose to use is actually storing your cash in a whole life insurance policy, which seems bizarre, but and the reason is because we all think about like term insurance or something. And so term insurance is this, it's kind of like car insurance. You're just kind of pushing the risk to somebody else, like car insurance or health insurance. And that's a great vehicle, but there's not like a way to store cash inside it. Whole life insurance is, a process that's 200 years old, where the insurance company collects, protects, and grows cash. And then when you pass away, whether you're 100 or 40, they hand that money to your family. So there's a mechanism inside to grow cash. And so if you really back away and look at it, you can just say, listen, instead of storing my money at 0.1% at a savings account and being taxed on that small amount, instead, I can store it in a life insurance policy and earn today 4 to 5%, access that money throughout my lifetime without paying any tax on that, and just get tremendously higher growth and privacy and protection. So it's just a different place to store and grow your cash, which becomes a foundation. And then on top of that, you go put it in high producing investments like real estate or your own personal business.
Yeah, I love it. And, I know that I'm a huge fan of it and participate. I have my own whole life policies in which I do this. And to me, it's one of the single greatest assets that I've utilized in the growing of my wealth, really because it's that true concept of infinite banking, right? Like instead of giving my bank the money, I give myself the money in a vehicle that then I can leverage, right? And so I like borrowing against that policy. And it doesn't take the cash out, right? It's just borrowing against the value of that policy. And then I'm using that money for lending in real estate, buying assets in real estate, funding my nonprofit, even funding my own life. My family operates off of a budget that's created by that. And so it is a fascinating concept, and it's been around for quite a while, right? I mean, it's not some new concept you came up with. How long has this concept been around?
So it was popularized by a guy named Nelson Nash, Becoming Your Own Banker, in 2000. Frankly, though, people have been using whole life insurance to store wealth way back into the 1800s. In fact, the reason that there are loans that you can borrow against life insurance policies is because in the early 1900s, when just about everybody was a farmer, or most people were farmers, and the banks were not safe. I mean, the banks really technically became safe in the 1920s, but people didn't trust them until about World War II. And so they would, the people would gather the harvest, they'd have all this cash, and they would start a life insurance policy. And then they would, they would need the money a couple years later, maybe not the next year, but 2 years later, they need the money for putting out the crops. And so they go cash in their policy. And finally, the insurance company said, listen, this is expensive for both of us. How about we just lend you money against your policy? It's kind of like taking your Rolex watch that has grown for you nicely, that you don't want to, sell, but you could use the equity that's in it, right? And you take it to the person who sold it to you, the dealer, or you take it to a pawn shop and you borrow money against it and then pay back that money. And then you get your watch back, and look, it's grown up even more because you didn't have to sell it. So that's really the concept. But the loan dates back to early 1930s. Life insurance policies in these companies date back into the early 1800s.
Yeah. I love, though, that you're taking this idea of fostering agency, creating, the ability to make decisions on our own with then vehicles that then protect us in that decision-making process, gives us leverage and the ability to grow our wealth. But then kind of your next step is you take a lot of that money and you invest in real estate. Why real estate outside of the stock market or crypto or whatever else, private equity? Why do you choose the vehicle of real estate?
Yeah, so there's a huge personal story there that I'll keep really short. But before I even go there, anyone who's interested that this resonates with should reach out to me, and I will send this book that's really fantastic. It's by my mentor, the guy that I got my policies from 12 years ago when I started this process. It's called Heads I Win, Tails You Lose by Patrick Donahoe. And in there, he talks about this hierarchy of wealth. And it's this way about thinking about using a pyramid, basically, as a way to build wealth in a predictable, safe manner. And it starts with, a cash liquid savings and protection layer, which we use the life insurance policy for, but you could use your savings account. But then above that are directly controlled assets. And what we've learned after tens of thousands of hours with thousands of clients over the years is that if you have high control over your money, who's got it, what they're doing with it, are they going to give it back, and are they going to give you a return on that investment, any friends coming back with your money, right? If you have high control and insight over that, then your risk is super low. So, the end of the spectrum, the top of the pyramid is putting your money in a slot machine and pulling the handle, right? And then down at the very bottom is saving in your savings account. So those are kind of opposite ends of the spectrum. But if you can start on the investing plane in those really directly controlled assets, which is like yourself and your own career, your own business, but also real estate. And then the part that's personal for me, in the early 1980s, I was on that dairy farm in Illinois, and we lost our farm because we had high interest rate, variable interest rate loans on our farm, and it got up to like 21%. The makers started visiting weekly, and then we ended up, getting foreclosed on essentially. And what I learned from that process is never be on the wrong side of the table from the government and high interest rates. And so I love long-term fixed rate loans. And, there's a lot of case studies. My portfolio is a case study. Many other of my clients are case studies over the last year or so, where we've pulled out more than we ever had in the property, got control of those dollars and put them either back to use again or put them in somewhere safe where we can, have control over them over these years. And it's all because we had fixed interest rates protecting us from this high inflation environment and our property inflated.
Yeah. I've been studying recently about people that are using infinite banking now to potentially offset the rising interest rates as well, right? Because now you have a fixed variable on that percentage of return. And so, if interest rates are rising, but you have enough cash, I've even heard recently of people saying, you know what, in kind of the perspective of interest rates rising, as opposed to me waiting and end up buying a house here, I can actually put this cash inside of a policy, borrow against that policy at a fixed interest rate essentially to myself, versus relying on the government or Fannie Mae or Freddie or whatever. There's so many great opportunities to control our destiny with this.
Absolutely. And it's, agency is about not having somebody else take control of your financial situation, and getting on the wrong side of high interest rates or high inflation just puts you right back in that spot.
Yeah, for sure. I know you have so much depth of knowledge in this space, and I know that I run the risk of going too deep, and we're out of time already, but you are going to be speaking and keynoting our Tampa event coming up in July, which is essentially your backyard now, which is great. Yeah. And so they can come here more there in person, but then also, how do they find you online? What's the best way to engage with you?
Yeah, there's a lot of things that point to the same website, but the easiest one is just my name. So GaryPinkerton.com. That's the easiest way. So
if they go to GaryPinkerton.com, then they can begin to start the conversation with you, figure out more about infinite banking. From my perspective, Gary, I wish that every Think Realty viewer, listener, member would at least engage in the process of educating themselves on these vehicles, because today, I don't know what phase of life they're in, phase of investing they're in, but I know that this is one of those turning points in my own life when I began to research it. Not when I made the first cash deposit into a policy, but when I began to research it, and my mind began to shift and change, and I began to think about the control I could have. And I wish that for every one of our Think Realty guests, for sure.
Absolutely. And the Resident Expert program has a lot of really good material. We have some new videos that the team is helping me launch that will be really into the basics of this too in the next few weeks. Yeah,
that's right. Gary is one of our many resident experts and speaks specifically on this, so you can even further this educational journey on the Think Realty platform, as well as you watch Gary speak specifically about these opportunities. So thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for your passion for Americans and for giving them the freedom that they so deserve.
My pleasure, Eddie. Hope we can help some people.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. If you go to thinkrealty.com/Tampa, or go to thinkrealty.com and click the events tab and click Tampa, sign up for 2 tickets, and when you're checking out, put in the code word or the coupon code podcast, PODCAST, podcast. That'll give you one ticket for free as you purchase the other one, as we're offering buy one, get one. We would love for you to come out, hear great speakers just like Gary and others who are sure to change the way you think about real estate. This episode has been brought to you by Real Property Management. Working with the right property management company can put more money in your pocket, not less. Real Property Management provides a higher standard of property management to make sure you're maximizing the return on your investment. Experience the real difference. Real Property Management. You can find them at Real Property MGT, realpropertymgt.com. Thank you so much for viewing or listening today. It's our privilege to be able to serve you, the real estate investor. If you're not continuing this conversation with us, make sure you go to social, follow me at Eddie Wilson Official on all the platforms, or go to Think Realty and follow Think Realty. We want to continue to serve you and would love to hear back from you on the things that you need, want, desire inside of the space so that we can be of greatest help and assistance to you. Have a great day and continue investing, and the best of luck to you.